Today, we are diving deep into the fascinating world of Washington quarter dollar coins, exploring their history, designs, mint marks, silver composition, rare varieties, and the hidden details that can make certain coins highly desirable to collectors. Some Washington quarters may look ordinary, worn, dirty, or discolored, but certain dates and mint marks can be worth far more than their 25-cent face value. However, remember that a coin is not automatically worth thousands or millions just because it is old. Its real value depends on factors such as rarity, condition, authenticity, variety, and collector demand. So before you spend that old quarter, stop and check the date and mint mark. You might have a valuable collectible hiding in your pocket change or old coin collection. Coin number 1. Today, we are looking at one of the most searched and misunderstood Washington quarters in American coin history, the 1965 Washington quarter with no mint mark. At first glance, this coin may look like just another old quarter sitting in a drawer, a jar, a pocket, or even buried under years of dirt and discoloration. But 1965 is not an ordinary date. It represents a major turning point in United States coinage, because this was the first year that regular Washington quarters were made with copper-nickel clad metal instead of the traditional 90% silver composition. And here is where the story becomes really interesting. If you find a 1965 quarter with no P, no D, and no S mint mark, do not automatically assume something is wrong with your coin. During this period, the United States Mint deliberately suspended mint marks on coins dated 1965 through 1967. So the absence of a mint mark is completely normal for a 1965 quarter. Production involved more than one facility, but the coins were intentionally issued without identifying mint marks. This unusual decision was connected to the coin shortage and the government's desire to discourage people from saving coins based on mint origin. Now let's talk about the history, because this is what makes the 1965 quarter fascinating. Before 1965, Washington quarters were made from 90% silver and 10% copper. But by the middle of the 1960s, rising silver prices and a serious nationwide coin shortage were putting enormous pressure on the American coinage system. The government needed a way to produce quarters without using so much silver. The result was a new copper-nickel clad composition, a copper core surrounded by outer layers containing copper and nickel. The 1965 quarter became one of the first major symbols of that transition. That means there is a very important line between a normal 1965 quarter and a genuine rare 1965 era quarter. A normal circulated 1965 quarter is generally not $1 million coin. In fact, most worn examples are worth around their face value of 25 cents. Even though the coin is more than 60 years old, age alone does not make it rare. The condition, strike, variety, and especially the presence of genuine mint error are what can transform an ordinary quarter into a valuable collectible. So if someone tells you that every 1965 quarter with no mint mark is worth thousands or millions of dollars, be extremely careful. That claim is misleading. The real excitement comes from the exceptional examples. A high-grade 1965 quarter with very clean surfaces, strong detail, and extraordinary preservation can command substantially more than face value. Some top-grade examples have reached thousands of dollars in specialized markets, but those prices apply to exceptional certified coins, not ordinary dirty coins found in circulation. Now comes one of the most important parts of today's story: silver. You may have heard people say, 1965 was the first year without silver, so there cannot be a silver 1965 quarter. That is almost true, but not completely. Extremely rare 1965 Washington quarters are known that were struck on leftover silver planchets from the previous coinage era. These are called transitional errors, and they are among the most exciting possibilities associated with the 1965 quarter. Imagine the situation inside the mint during this historic transition. The country was moving from old silver planchets to the new clad planchets. Different materials, different production systems, enormous quantities of coins, and a rapidly changing coinage program created an environment in which a small number of wrong planchets could potentially enter production. If a 1965 dated quarter was struck on a genuine leftover 90% silver quarter planchet, that coin would be fundamentally different from an ordinary 1965 clad quarter. This is where your kitchen scale can become surprisingly important. A normal 1965 clad quarter weighs approximately 5.67 grams, while traditional 90% silver quarter planchet weighs approximately 6.25 grams. That difference is significant enough to make weighing an interesting first screening step. But remember this very important warning. Weight alone does not prove an error. A coin can be damaged, altered, contaminated, or measured inaccurately. A potentially valuable silver planchet error should be authenticated by a professional grading service before anyone treats it as a major rarity. There's another powerful clue hiding on the edge of the coin. A normal clad quarter has a visible copper-colored center line running around the edge. A genuine silver quarter does not have that same copper core appearance. So when examining a suspected 1965 silver error, collectors carefully study both the weight and the edge. If your coin appears silver-colored all the way through the edge and weighs around the silver planchet specification, that is when the story becomes much more interesting. But please do not take a dirty coin and immediately clean it because you think cleaning will reveal its hidden fortune. Do not polish it, scrape it, scratch it, or use chemicals. Collectors generally prefer original surfaces, and aggressive cleaning can permanently damage a coin's collectible value. A coin that looks dark, stained, dusty, or dirty may still be collectible, but its true condition needs to be evaluated without destroying the original surface. Now let's talk about another fascinating possibility. Double dies. Some 1965 quarters are known with recognized double die varieties. These varieties can show doubling in areas such as the lettering, date, or other design details. But there is a huge difference between genuine hub doubling and ordinary machine doubling. A blurry-looking edge or flattened lettering does not automatically mean you have a valuable double die. Serious collectors look for specific diagnostic characteristics associated with recognized varieties. And this is why you should never judge the value of a 1965 quarter simply by looking at a photograph on social media. Online videos sometimes show spectacular numbers, such as $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, or even much higher figures. Those numbers can attract attention, but the actual value of a coin depends on authenticity, variety, condition, certification, rarity, and what buyers are willing to pay. A headline claiming, "One quarter could make you a millionaire," is entertainment unless a specific coin is evidence supporting that valuation. The 1965 quarter also has another interesting category called the Special Mint Set, or SMS, issue. During this period, the mint changed how collector coins were produced, and special sets were made rather than the normal proof and uncirculated sets collectors were accustomed to. Approximately 2.36 million 1965 special mint sets were produced, and the quarters inside can have a noticeably different appearance from ordinary circulation strikes. High-quality SMS examples, especially attractive cameo or deep cameo pieces, can bring meaningful premiums. Now imagine finding a 1965 quarter in an old family collection. It has no mint mark. The date is clearly visible. The surfaces look unusually sharp. The coin has never been heavily circulated. You turn it over and notice a beautiful strike. Then you inspect the edge and notice something unusual. You place it on a precise scale, and the weight is significantly different from the normal clad specification. Suddenly, this is no longer just an old quarter. It becomes a coin that deserves professional investigation. That is the real excitement of coin collecting. You don't need to assume that every old coin is a fortune. Instead, you learn how to separate the ordinary from the extraordinary. Most 1965 quarters are common. Some are collectible because of their condition. Some are interesting because they are SMS pieces. Some may have recognized die varieties. And the truly exceptional transitional silver planchet errors are where the possibility of a dramatic premium enters the conversation. So what should you do if you actually have one? First, look at the date. Confirm that it really says 1965. Next, confirm that there is no mint mark. And remember, that is normal for this year. Then inspect Washington's portrait, the lettering, the date, and the reverse design for unusual doubling or striking characteristics. After that, carefully examine the edge. Finally, weigh the coin using an accurate digital scale. If the weight and appearance strongly suggest a possible silver planchet error, Don't clean the coin and don't sell it to the first person who makes you an exciting offer. Get it professionally authenticated. And here's the biggest lesson from the 1965 Washington Quarter. The coin story is more valuable than the hype surrounding it. This quarter was born during one of the most dramatic changes in modern American coinage. It marks the transition away from the famous 90% silver Washington Quarter and into the clad era. Billions of regular 1965 quarters were produced, which is exactly why the ordinary example is not automatically rare. Yet the same year produced unusual varieties, special strikes, and extremely rare transitional errors that collectors continue to study. So if you have a dirty 1965 Washington Quarter sitting in your house, don't throw it away just because it looks ordinary. But at the same time, don't believe anyone who tells you that the coin is automatically worth millions simply because it says 1965 and has no mint mark. The smart collector checks the facts. The smart collector weighs the coin. The smart collector studies the edge. The smart collector looks for varieties. And when something truly unusual appears, the smart collector gets professional authentication. The most exciting possibility is not that every 1965 quarter will make you rich. The exciting possibility is that one exceptional coin can be completely different from the billions of ordinary pieces around it. That is what makes coin hunting so addictive. A quarter can sit unnoticed for decades, pass through countless hands, and then one day someone finally notices a tiny detail that everyone else missed coin number 2. Today, we are going deep into one of the most famous Washington quarters ever made, the 1776 to 1976 Bicentennial Quarter with no mint mark. This is not just another quarter. It was created to celebrate 200 years of American independence, and its unusual double date and famous colonial drummer design make it instantly recognizable. But here's a question that every collector wants answered. Can a dirty 1776 to 1976 quarter with no mint mark really be worth a fortune? Could one rare example be worth thousands of dollars, or even dramatically more? The answer is much more interesting than simply saying yes or no. The first thing you need to understand is that the date 1776 to 1976 does not mean the coin was struck in 1776. It is a special dual date representing the 200th anniversary of American independence. The Bicentennial Quarter was part of a historic redesign that also affected the Kennedy half dollar and Eisenhower dollar. The United States Mint says the new designs were the first circulating coin designs created specifically to honor an anniversary of American independence. Now look closely at the reverse of this quarter. Instead of the traditional eagle that normally appeared on Washington quarters, you see a colonial drummer holding a drum with a torch and 13 stars surrounding the design. That drummer became one of the most recognizable images in modern American coinage. The design was selected through a national competition, making this quarter not only a piece of pocket change, but also a small piece of America's bicentennial celebration. And here comes the first shocking fact. Bicentennial quarters were actually struck during both 1975 and 1976, but everyone carries a dual date 1776 to 1976. So if you find one today, don't assume it was physically produced during the exact year 1976. The Mint began producing the bicentennial designs before the anniversary year, so that enough coins would be available for the celebration. Now let's talk about your specific coin, the 1776 to 1976 quarter with no mint mark. If there is no letter such as D or S next to Washington's portrait, that normally means a coin was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. And this is extremely important. The absence of a mint mark is normal for the Philadelphia Bicentennial Quarter. It does not automatically mean the coin is rare, defective, or made from silver. Philadelphia produced hundreds of millions of these circulation quarters. In fact, approximately 809.8 million Philadelphia Bicentennial quarters were produced for circulation. Denver produced even more, approximately 860.1 million. That enormous production means the ordinary no mint mark quarter is not a $1 million coin simply because it has a famous 1776 to 1976 date. But don't stop watching because this is where the story gets much more interesting. There were silver bicentennial quarters, but they are not the same as the ordinary Philadelphia no mint mark coins. The United States Mint produced special bicentennial coins containing 40% silver, including quarters, half dollars, and dollars. These silver versions were collector issues, not ordinary circulation coins. And there is a simple detail that can help you understand what you have. The regular Philadelphia and Denver circulation bicentennial quarters were copper-nickel clad. The special 40% silver versions were produced at San Francisco and carry an S mint mark. So if your 1776 to 1976 quarter has no mint mark, you should not automatically call it a silver quarter. The normal no mint mark Philadelphia issue is clad. Now imagine you find an old bicentennial quarter in a drawer. It is dark, dirty, scratched-looking, and covered with years of discoloration. You might think, this is just 25 cents. But before you spend it, examine it carefully. Look at Washington's portrait. Look at the lettering. Study the date. Examine the drummer on the reverse. Look at the edge. And if possible, weigh it accurately. A normal clad quarter is around 5.67 grams, while the 40% silver bicentennial quarter is slightly heavier, around 5.75 grams. That difference can be useful as an initial clue, but weight alone cannot authenticate a rare coin. The edge can also tell an interesting story. A normal clad quarter has a copper-colored core visible around the edge. A silver-clad bicentennial quarter has a much more uniform silver-colored appearance. So turn the coin sideways and inspect that narrow edge. If your coin looks completely different from a normal copper-striped appearance, don't immediately clean it or sell it. Investigate it first. But here's another warning that every collector should remember. Do not clean your coin. If your bicentennial quarter is dirty, stained, dark, or toned, leave it alone. Scrubbing, polishing, chemicals, or abrasive materials can permanently damage the original surface and potentially reduce collector interest. A coin that looks ugly can sometimes still be valuable because originality matters. Now let's talk about errors. This is where the possibility of a much higher value becomes real. A normal bicentennial quarter is common, but genuine mint errors and varieties can attract serious collector attention. Some examples include double dies, die breaks, striking errors, and other unusual mint-made characteristics. But be careful. Not every strange-looking mark is an error. Damage after the coin left the mint can create scratches, flattening, dents, and distorted lettering that may look exciting but have little numismatic value. One of the most important things to understand is the difference between ordinary damage and a genuine mint error. Suppose you find doubling on a letter. Don't immediately announce that you have a rare double die. Machine doubling, die deterioration, scratches, and post-mint damage can create misleading appearances. A legitimate variety should have identifiable characteristics that specialists can verify. Now, let's return to the silver mystery. The U.S. Mint specifically authorized 40% silver bicentennial coins, and Congress required at least 45 million numismatic versions to be produced. The Mint struck these special silver coins at San Francisco and sold them to collectors. That means the silver bicentennial quarter is absolutely real, but the common no-mint mark Philadelphia quarter is not normally silver. This is one of the biggest misconceptions surrounding bicentennial quarters. If somebody tells you every 1776 to 1976 quarter is silver, that is simply incorrect. Most were clad. The silver versions were special collector issues. So what can these coins actually be worth? A normal circulated Philadelphia bicentennial quarter is generally close to face value, although attractive uncirculated examples can carry a premium. Current guides show that common examples can range from roughly face value into a few dollars depending on condition, while exceptional certified high-grade pieces can bring substantially more. The story changes when we reach the highest grades. A common coin can become surprisingly valuable when it survives decades with extraordinary surfaces, sharp details, and very little contact damage. Professional grading companies assign grades based on the coin's condition, and the difference between a normal circulated coin and an exceptionally preserved mint state coin can be enormous. This is why you should never judge a coin's value just by its age. A 1976 quarter is over 50 years old, but age by itself doesn't make it rare. What matters is rarity plus condition plus demand plus authenticity. A heavily circulated coin that has spent decades in pockets may remain a 25-cent coin, while an exceptional certified example can enter an entirely different collector market. And then there are the truly dramatic examples. Certain high-grade bicentennial quarters and major errors have achieved prices far above ordinary examples. Some online reports mention spectacular five-figure numbers for exceptional coins. But these are not the normal prices for dirty, circulated quarters. There are special cases involving extraordinary condition, specific varieties, or unusual errors. So if you have a dirty bicentennial quarter, don't think, I am automatically a millionaire. Instead, think, I might have something that deserves a closer look. That mindset is much more realistic and much safer. Now imagine finding a quarter with a dual date 1776 to 1976, no mint mark, and an unusually sharp strike. You examine the edge and notice something strange. You weigh it and get an unexpected result. You inspect the design and discover what appears to be a genuine double feature. At that moment, the coin has moved from ordinary pocket change into the category of potentially interesting numismatic material. That's when professional authentication becomes important. Never sell a potentially rare coin simply because someone tells you, I'll give you $20 for it right now. If the coin has unusual characteristics, get multiple opinions and consider professional authentication. A genuine rare error can be worth dramatically more than an ordinary quarter, while a fake or damaged coin can be worth very little. The difference between those two situations is knowledge. And here's the historical reason this quarter remains so popular today. The Bicentennial program represented an extraordinary moment in American history. The mint wasn't simply changing a design for fun. The country was preparing to celebrate 2 centuries of independence, and millions of Americans were going to carry these new coins in their pockets. The quarter became a miniature national celebration. That's why collectors still love the 1776 to 1976 quarter. The coin connects everyday American life with the nation's 200th anniversary. Every time you see that drummer, those 13 stars, and the dual date, you're looking at a design created specifically for a historic national celebration coin number 3. Today, we are taking a close look at the 1979 D. Washington Quarter, a coin that may look completely ordinary at first glance, but one that becomes much more interesting when you understand its history, composition, condition, mint mark, and possible errors. You may have heard dramatic stories claiming that a 1979 D quarter could make someone a millionaire overnight. The truth is more fascinating. Most 1979 D quarters are common, but exceptionally preserved coins and genuine mint errors can be worth dramatically more than face value. So before you throw that old, dirty quarter into a spending pile, let's discover exactly what makes this coin worth examining. The first thing to understand is the D mint mark. On a 1979 D Washington Quarter, the small letter D identifies the Denver Mint. You can find it on the obverse, just behind Washington's hair ribbon. In 1979, Denver produced approximately 489,789,780 Washington quarters, making the 1979 D a heavily produced issue rather than a scarce date in ordinary circulated condition. Its standard composition was copper-nickel clad, with a copper core, and the coin weighs about 5.67 grams with a diameter of approximately 24.3 millimeters. Now here is something important about the word silver. A normal 1979 D Washington Quarter is not a 90% silver quarter. It is a copper-nickel clad coin. The outer layers contain copper and nickel, while the center is copper. That means an ordinary 1979 D quarter should not be valued as an old silver quarter simply because it looks shiny, dark, gray, or silver-colored. If your coin has a copper-colored line around the edge, that is consistent with its normal clad construction. But this is exactly where coin collecting becomes exciting. Sometimes a coin can look completely ordinary while hiding a genuine mint-made error. A 1979 quarter can potentially become much more valuable when it has an authenticated error, such as a missing clad layer, wrong planchet, or another major striking abnormality. These are not the same thing as scratches, dents, corrosion, or damage that happened after the coin left the mint. The difference between a real mint error and ordinary damage can mean a huge difference in collector interest. Imagine finding a 1979 D quarter underneath an old pile of coins. It is dirty, dark, and heavily circulated. You almost throw it away because it looks worthless. But then you notice something unusual about the edge. The coin seems to have an unusual color on one side. You turn it over and discover that part of the normal clad surface appears to be missing. Suddenly, the coin deserves a much closer examination. A genuine missing clad layer error can expose the copper core and create a distinctive reddish or copper appearance. Documented 1979 quarter missing clad layer errors have sold for premiums, although the exact value depends on severity, authenticity, grade, and market demand. And this is why you should never clean an old 1979 D quarter before determining what it is. If your coin is dirty, leave the dirt and original surface alone. Do not polish it with metal cleaner. Do not scrub it with a brush. Do not scrape the edge of the knife. Do not use chemicals to make it shine. A collector would much rather examine an original coin than a potentially damaged coin that has been aggressively cleaned. Now, let's talk about condition, because this is where an ordinary 1979 D quarter can become surprisingly interesting. A circulated example may only be worth slightly more than face value, depending on condition and the buyer's market. NGC's current guide shows circulated 1979 D quarters generally in a range of roughly 30 cents to 85 cents, while exceptionally pristine examples can command much more. The difference becomes dramatic at the very highest grades. PCGS records a 1979 D quarter with an auction record of $1,078 for an MS-67 example, sold in 2014. NGC's guide also indicates that pristine uncirculated examples can reach much higher values than ordinary circulated pieces. This is a perfect example of why condition matters so much in modern coin collecting. A coin that was produced in enormous numbers can still become scarce at an elite grade because relatively few pieces survive with nearly flawless surfaces. Think about what happens to a quarter after it leaves the mint. It gets dropped into bags, transported, counted by machines, placed into cash registers, carried in side pockets, rubbed against other coins, dropped onto hard surfaces, and handled thousands of times. Every contact can create tiny marks. So finding a 1979 D quarter with exceptional surfaces, strong details, and very few contact marks can be much harder than simply finding a 1979 D quarter. This is known as condition rarity. The date itself may be common, but the highest quality examples can be scarce. That is why a collector should never look only at the year and mint mark. You also need to examine the preservation of the coin. Is Washington's cheek heavily scratched? Are there marks in the open fields? Is the hair detail sharp? Does the reverse eagle have strong definition? Is the original luster still present? These details can make a major difference when a professional grader evaluates the coin. Now turn the coin over and look at the reverse. You will see the familiar Washington quarter eagle with its wings spread wide, surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America, E pluribus unum, and quarter dollar. This classic reverse was still being used in 1979, before the major redesigns that would come later in the Washington Quarter series. The design itself connects the 1979 quarter to decades of American coinage history. But there's another reason 1979 is interesting. It was one of the final years before the Philadelphia Mint began putting the P Mint mark on circulating quarters. According to PCGS, Philadelphia coins from 1932 through 1979 carried no mint mark, while the P mint mark began appearing on quarters in 1980. That means a 1979 quarter without a mint mark is normal for Philadelphia, while the president of AD identifies Denver.